Hey, Sabati Challenge members, well, welcome to another beautiful week. And I'm going to talk a little bit this morning just about strength training and the role of strength training in overall fat loss. Now, one of the interesting things, of course, we know that the accumulation of muscle mass over time has a positive effect on fat loss. But the challenge is that it takes, of course, a great deal of muscle to have a massive change on fat loss. And it's actually the total sum of all our behaviors that really make the biggest difference. So what I'm referring to is strength training, of course, as I said, it uses up a certain amount of calories during your training. Muscle is more metabolically active than fat tissue. So yes, it has a positive net gain on the ability to lose body fat. But it's, of course, a dietary practice that go along with it. So being consistent in our dietary behavior, knowing what our diet is going to look like, our lifestyle eating behavior, and being really consistent with that. And not necessarily in a restrictive way, but just being consistent, eating healthy, high-quality foods, being conservative in our calories so we're not overeating, but of course undereating is not good either. Sleep is a massive thing for a lot of us, getting adequate levels of sleep. I use melatonin. I take melatonin about an hour, sometimes 2 hours prior to me going to bed to really make sure my body is ready for sleep. And I'm a bit of a sleep Nazi. I really think sleep is one of the most important aspects of fat loss because it's the only time the body really gets to heal properly. And of course, cardiovascular training is another element, and cardiovascular training, of course, supports fat loss, but is not the biggest driver of fat loss. It's the accumulation of all the effects, right? From your strength training to your sound dietary practices, to your sleep patterns, and to the inclusion of cardiovascular training for improved heart and lung function. And again, just a quick note on cardiovascular training. I don't use cardiovascular training as my primary method of fat loss. It's one of the pillars I use, but it's not the primary source. If I had to pick one entirely, I would pick sleep as the primary source of fat loss up and above all of them. Because if you manage sleep, you actually manage a big chunk of your immunity, your mental well-being, and your ability to recover. So that's a huge portion. For the strength training component, of course, make sure you're training with enough intensity. And one thing I like to do is that at the end of a set of exercises, let's say you're doing bicep curls, for example, right? And your program says you should do 5 sets of 12. So at the last set of 12 reps, right? So I've done all 4 sets. I'm on my 5th set. With the same weight I'm using, I'll do as many reps as I can do until I reach a point of fatigue. The reason why I do that is I want to see how much energy was left over. So if I did 4 sets of 12 on my last set of 12, or the last set of exercises for bicep curls, I did 35 repetitions. It's telling me that the weight I was using in the previous 4 sets was not heavy enough. So think about any given exercise that you're doing, and again, this is more prominently more associated to the bigger muscle groups because it's safer to do it that way. You think about, let's say, a back exercise, like doing a seated row. If your goal is to do 5 sets of 12 using that numerical sequence, so our goal is to do 5 sets of 12, then I would do 2 to 3 sets of warm-up weight to get me to my working weight. And then the first set of 12, I should struggle at reps 11 and 12, right? So it shouldn't be, because quite often what happens is that by the time I get to the 3rd set, I'm just warmed up. Now I only have 2 more sets to go. So I warm up 3 sets just to get to my working weight, and then I struggle for the 5 sets of 12, so I'm barely able to get the 12th rep out. Right? You still always want to manage to do it in good form. So let's say set number 1, of course, I get 12 reps out, but man, it was a struggle. I rested the appropriate amount of time, whatever your program kind of currently looks at, and then I end up resting, let's say I rest a minute or what have you. I get 11 reps and maybe 11 and a half. I just really struggling on the last one. By set number 3, I only got 11. By set number 4, I only got 10. And by set number 5, I got 8. Is that a success or a failure? To me, that's a success. Because the goal of strength training, of course, is not to lift a certain amount of weight, is to fatigue the muscles in a certain rep range. And if I can fatigue the muscles adequately and safely in a certain rep range, then it'll give me the desired results that I want. We have to really separate the idea of powerlifting, which is based on how much am I lifting, what does that look like, and Olympic weightlifting as well, to bodybuilding and strength training, which is can I fatigue my muscles safely and adequately within a certain rep range and make sure that I reach a point of near failure at the end of that rep scheme. That's what drives the body forward. That's where your success comes from. All right, guys, well, that's your little quick tip for the week. Hope you have an extraordinary week laid out for yourself. Hope you're successful in what you're doing. Pay attention, be consistent, reach out and ask for help when you need it. I'm always here.